Hello, listening squirrels! It's time for chapter 16. I'm sorry I didn't get to you yesterday. What can I say? I get slack sometimes. Chapter 16 is called In the Twilight. If Sylvia needed another trial to make that hard week harder, it soon came to her in the knowledge that Warwick watched her. She well knew why, and vainly endeavored to conceal from him that which she had succeeded in concealing entirely from others. But he possessed the key to her variable moods. He alone knew that now painful forethought. Remember, the last thing we read was he saw her and how old she looked and everything, and he figured out she did, in fact, love him. And he said something like, Lord help us all, or let's see what he said. God help us all. I was mistaken. God help us all was what he said. Painful forethought, not caprice, dictated many of her seeming whims and ruled her simplest action. To others she appeared busy, gay, and full of interest in all about her. To him, the industry was a preventive of forbidden thoughts, the gaiety a daily endeavor to forget, the interest and anxiety concealing the looks and words of her companions because she must guard her own. Sylvia felt something like terror in the presence of this penetrating eye, this daring will, for the vigilance was unflagging and unobtrusive, and with all her efforts she could not read his heart as she felt her own was being read. Adam could act no part, but bent on learning the truth for the sake of all. He surmounted the dangers of the situation by no artifice, no rash indulgence, but by simply shunning solitary interviews with Sylvia as carefully as the courtesy due his hostess would allow. In walks and drives and general conversation he bore his part, surprising and delighting those who knew him best by the genial change which seemed to have softened his rugged nature. But the instant the family group fell apart and Moore's devotion to his cousin left Sylvia alone, Warwick was away into the wood or out upon the sea, lingering there till some meal, some appointed pleasure, or the evening lamp brought all together. Sylvia understood this and loved him for it, even while she longed to have it otherwise. But Moore reproached him for his desertion, doubly felt since the gentler acquirements made him dearer to his friends. Hating all disguises, Warwick found it hard to withhold the fact which was not his own to give, and sparing no blame to himself, answered Moore's playful complaint with a sad sincerity that freed him from all further pleadings. Geoffrey, I have a heavy heart which even you cannot heal. Leave it to time, and let me come and go as of old, enjoying the social hour when I may, flying to solitude when I must. Much as Sylvia had longed to see these friends, she counted the hours of their stay, for the presence of one was a daily disquieting because spirits would often flag, conversation fail, and an utter weariness creep over her when she could least account for or yield to it. More than once during that week she longed to lay her head on Faith's kind bosom and ask help. Deep as was her husband's love, it did not possess the soothing power of a woman's sympathy. And though it cradled her as tenderly as if she had been a child, Faith's compassion would have been like motherly arms to fold and foster. But friendly as they soon became, frank as was Faith's regard for Sylvia, earnest as was Sylvia's affection for Faith, she never seemed to reach that deeper place where she desired to be. Always, when she thought she had found the innermost that each of us seek for in our friend, she felt that Faith drew back, and a reserve as delicate as inflexible barred her approach with chilly gentleness. This seemed so far into Faith's nature that Sylvia pondered and grieved over it till the belief came to her that this woman, so truly excellent and love-worthy, did not desire to receive her confidence, and sometimes a bitter feel assailed her that Warwick was not the only reader of her secret trouble. All things have an end, and that last day came none too soon for one dweller under that hospitable roof. Faith refused all entreaties to stay, and looked somewhat anxiously at Warwick as Moore turned from herself to him with the same urgency. "Adam, will you stay? Promise me another week." "I never promised, Geoffrey." Believing that, as no denial came, his request was granted, Moore gave his whole attention to Faith, who was to leave them in an hour. "Sylvia, while I help our cousin to select and fasten up the books and prints she likes to take with her, will you run down into the garden and fill your prettiest basket with all our finest grapes? You'll like that better than fumbling with folds and string, and you know one's servant should not perform these pleasant services for one's best friends." Glad to be away, Sylvia ran through the long grape walk to its sunniest nook, and standing outside the arch began to lay the purple clusters in her basket. "Oh, I'd love to have some grapes right off the vine. We used to have a wonderful Concord grapevine. Oh my gosh, those grapes were so good." In her basket. Only a moment was she there alone. Warwick's shadow, lengthened by the declining sun, soon fell black along the path. He did not see her, nor seem intent on following her. He walked slowly, hat in hand, so slowly that he was but midway down the leafy lane when Faith's voice arrested him. She was in haste, as her hurried step and almost breathless words betrayed, and losing on an instant, she cried before they met, "Adam, you will come with me. I cannot leave you here." "Do you doubt me, Faith?" "No, but loving women are so weak." "So strong, you mean. Men are weakest when they love. Adam, will you come?" "I will follow you. I shall speak with Geoffrey first." "Must you tell him so soon?" "I must." "Tell him what?" Faith's hand had been on Warwick's arm as he spoke the last word. She bent her head upon it for an instant, then without another word turned and hurried back as rapidly as she had come. Oh my gosh. Are they having a thing? Surely not. While Warwick stood where she left him, motionless as if buried in some absorbing thought. All had passed in a moment too soon, too full of intense surprise to leave Sylvia time for recollection and betrayal of her presence. Half hidden and wholly unobserved, she had seen the unwonted agitation of Faith's countenance and manner, had heard Warwick's softly spoken answers to her eager appeals, and with a great pang had discovered that some tender confidence existed between these two, of which she had never dreamed. Suddenly, as the discovery was its acceptance and belief, not knowing her own weakness, Sylvia found something like relief in the hope that a new happiness for Warwick had ended all temptation, and in time perhaps all pain for herself. Impulsive as ever, she leaned upon the seeming truth, and making of the fancy a fact, passed into a perfect passion of self-abnegation, feeling in the brief pause that followed Faith's departure. This is the change we see in him. This made him watch me, hoping I had forgotten, as I once said and believed. I should be glad. I will be glad. And let him see that even while I suffer, I can rejoice in that which helps us both. Full of generous purpose, yet half doubting how to execute it, Sylvia stepped from the recess where she had stood and slowly passed toward Warwick, apparently intent on settling her fruity burden as she went. At the first sound of her light step on the gravel, he turned, feeling at once that she must have heard, and eager to learn what significance that short dialogue possessed for her. Only a hasty glance did she give him as she came, but it showed him flushed cheeks, excited eyes, and lips a little tremulous as they said, "These are for Faith. Will you hold the basket while I cover it with leaves?" He took it and as the first green covering was deftly laid, he asked, below his breath, "Sylvia, did you hear us?" To his unutterable amazement, she looked up clearly, and all her heart was in her voice as she answered, with a fervency he could not doubt, "Yes, and I was glad to know that a nobler woman filled the place I cannot fill. Oh, believe it, Adam, and be sure that the knowledge of your great content will lighten the terrible regret which you have seen as nothing else ever could have done." Down fell the basket at their feet, and taking her face between his hands, Warwick bent and searched with a glance that seemed to penetrate to her heart's core. For a moment she struggled to escape, but the grasp that held her was immovable. She tried to oppose the steadfast front and baffle that perilous inspection, but quick and deep rushed the traitorous color over cheek and forehead with its mute betrayal. She tried to turn her eyes away, but those other eyes, dark and dilated with intensity of purpose, fixed her own, and the confronting countenance wore an expression which made its familiar features look awfully large and grand to her panic-stricken sight. A sense of utter helplessness fell on her, courage deserted her, pride changed to fear, defiance to despair. As the flush faded, the fugitive glance was arrested, and the upturned face became a pale blank, ready to receive the answer that strong scrutiny was slowly bringing to the light, as invisible characters start out upon a page when fire passes over them. Neither spoke, but soon, through all opposing barriers, the magnetism of an indomitable will drew forth the truth, set free the captive passion pent so long, and wrung from those reluctant lineaments a full confession of that power which heaven has gifted with eternal youth. The instant this assurance was his beyond a doubt, Warwick released her, snatched up his hat, and hurrying down the path, vanished in the wood. Spent as with an hour's excitement, and bewildered by emotions which she could no longer master, Sylvia lingered in the grape walk till her husband called her. Then, hastily refilling her basket, she shook her hair about her face and went to bid Faith good-bye. Moore was to accompany her to the city, and they left early, that Faith might pause for an adieu to Mark and Prudence. "Where is Adam? Has he gone before, or been inveigled into staying?" Moore spoke to Sylvia, but busied in fastening the basket lid, she seemed not to hear, and Faith replied for her, "He will take a later boat. We need not wait for him." When Faith embraced Sylvia, all the coldness had melted from her manner, and her voice was tender as a mother's, as she whispered low in her ear, "Dear child, if ever you need any help that Geoffrey cannot give, remember Cousin Faith." For 2 hours Sylvia sat alone, not idle, for in the first real solitude she had enjoyed for 7 days, she looked deeply into herself, and putting by all disguises owned the truth, and resolved to repair the past if possible, as Faith had counseled in the case which she had now made her own. Like so many of us, Sylvia often saw her errors too late to avoid committing them, and failing to do the right thing at the right moment, kept herself forever in arrears with that creditor who must inevitably be satisfied. She had been coming to this decision all that weary week, and these quiet hours left her both resolute and resigned. As she sat there while the early twilight began to gather, her eye often turned to Warwick's travelling bag, which Faith, having emptied it ready in his chamber, had brought down and laid in the library as a reminder of her wish. As she looked at it, Sylvia's heart yearned toward it in the fond, foolish way which women have of endowing the possessions of those they love with the attractions of sentient things and a portion of their owner's character or claim upon themselves. It was like Warwick, simple and strong, no key in every mark of the long use which had tested its capabilities and proved them durable. A pair of gloves lay beside it on the chair, and though she longed to touch anything of his, she resisted the temptation till, pausing near them in one of her journeys to the window, she saw a rent in the glove that lay uppermost. That appeal was irresistible. Poor Adam! There has been no one to care for him so long, and Faith does not yet know how. Surely I may perform so small a service for him, if he never knows how tenderly I do it. Standing ready to drop her work at a sound, Sylvia snatched a brief satisfaction which so solaced her more than an hour of idle lamentation. And as she kissed the glove with a long, sad kiss and put it down with eyes that dimly saw where it should be, perhaps there went as much love and sorrow into that little act as ever glorified some greater deed. Then she went to lie in the refuge, as she had named, an ancient chair, with her head on its embracing arm, not weeping, but quietly watching the flicker of the fire, which filled the room with warm duskiness, making the twilight doubly pleasant, till a sudden blaze leaped up, showing her that her watch was over and Warwick come. She had not heard him enter, but there he was, close before her, his face glowing with the frosty air, his eye clear and kind, and in his aspect that nameless charm which won for him the confidence of whosoever read his countenance. Scarce knowing why, Sylvia felt reassured that all was well, and looked up with more welcome in her heart than she dared betray in words. Come at last. Where have you been so long, Adam? Round the island, I suspect, for I lost my way and had no guide but instincts to lead me home again. I like to say that word, for though it is not home, it seems so to me now. May I sit here before I go and warm myself at your fire, Sylvia? Sure of his answer, he established himself on the stool at her feet, stretched his hand to the grateful blaze, and went on with some inward resolution lending its power and depth to his voice. I had a question to settle with myself, and went to find my best counselors in the wood. Often when I'm harassed by some perplexity or doubt to which I can find no wise or welcome answer, I walk myself into a belief that it will come. Then it appears. I stoop to break a handsome flower, to pick up a cone, or watch some little creature happier than I, and there lies my answer like a good luck penny, ready to my hand. Faith has gone, but Geoffrey hopes to keep you for another week, said Sylvia, ignoring the unsafe topic. Shall we have his wish? Faith expects you to follow her, and you think I ought? I think you will. When does the next boat leave? An hour hence. I'll wait for it here. Did I wake you coming in? I was not asleep, only lazy, warm, and quiet, and deadly tired, dear soul. How can it be otherwise, leading the life you lead? There was such compassion in his voice, such affection in his eyes, such fostering kindliness in the touch of the hand he laid upon her own, that Sylvia cried within herself, oh, if Geoffrey would only come. And hoping for that help to save her from herself, she hastily replied, You are mistaken, Adam. My life is easier than I deserve. My husband makes me very miserable. The truth. To me, Sylvia. Warwick rose as he spoke, closed the door, and came back wearing an expression which caused her to start up with a gesture of entreaty. No, I will not hear you, Adam. You must not speak. He paused opposite her, leaving a little space between them, which he did not cross through all that followed, and with that look, inflexible yet pitiful, he answered steadily, I must speak, and you will hear me. But understand me, Sylvia, I desire and design no French sentiment, nor sin like that we heard of, and what I say now, I would say if Geoffrey stood between us. I have settled this point after long thought and the heartiest prayers I ever prayed. And much as I have at stake, I speak more for your sake than my own. Therefore do not entreat nor delay, but listen, and let me show you the wrong you are doing yourself, your husband, and your friend. Does Faith know all the past? Does she desire you to do this, that her happiness may be secure? Demanded Sylvia. Faith is no more to me, nor I to Faith, than the friendliest regard can make us. She suspected that I loved you long ago. She now believes that you love me. She pities her cousin tenderly, but will not meddle with the tangle we have made for our 3 lives. Forget that folly and let me speak to you as I should. When we parted, I thought you loved Geoffrey. So did you. When I came here, I was sure of it for a day, but on that second night, I saw your face as you stood here alone. And then I knew what I have since assured myself of. God knows. I think my gain dearly purchased by his loss. I see your double trial. I know the tribulations in store for all of us. Yet as an honest man I must speak out, because you ought not delude yourself or Geoffrey another day. What right have you to come between us and decide my duty, Adam? Sylvia spoke passionately, aroused to resistance by his manner and the turmoil of emotions warring within her. The right of a sane man to save the woman he loves from destroying her own peace forever and undermining the confidence of the friend dearest to them both. I know this is not the world's way in such matters, but I care not, because I believe one human creature has a right to speak to another in times like these, if they two stood alone. I will not command, I will appeal to you, and if you are the candid soul I think you, your own words shall prove the truth of what I say. Sylvia, do you love your husband? Yes, Adam, dearly. More than you love me? I wish I did. I wish I did. Are you happy with him? I was till you came. I shall be when you are gone. Never. It is impossible to go back to the blind tranquility you once enjoyed. Now a single duty lies before you. Delay is weak, deceit is wicked, utter sincerity alone can help us. Tell Geoffrey all then, whether you live your life alone or one day come to me. There is no false dealing to repent of, and looking the hard fact in the face robs it of one half its terrors. Will you do this, Sylvia? No, Adam, remember what he said that night. I love but few, and those few are my world. I am chief in that world. Shall I destroy it for my selfish pleasure? He waited for me very long, is waiting still. Can I for a second time disappoint the patient heart that would find it easier to give up life than the poor possession which I am? No, I ought not, dare not do it yet. If you dare not speak the truth to your friend, you do not deserve him, and the name is a lie. You ask me to remember what he said that night. I ask you to recall the look with which he begged you not to try him too hardly. Put it to yourself, which is the kinder justice? A full confession now, or a late one hereafter, when longer subterfuge has made it harder for you to offer, bitterer for him to receive? I tell you, Sylvia, it were more merciful to murder him outright than to slowly wear away his faith, his peace and love by a vain endeavor to perform as a duty that perform as a duty what should be your sweetest pleasure, and what will soon become a burden heavier than you can bear. You do not see as I see. You cannot understand what I am to him, nor can I tell you what he is to me. It is not as if I could dislike or despise him for any unworthiness of his, nor if he were a lover only, then I could do much, which now is worse than impossible. For I have married him, and it is too late. Oh, Sylvia, why could you not have waited? Why? Because I am what I am, too easily led by circumstances, too entirely possessed by whatever hope, belief, or fear rules me for the hour. Give me a steadfast nature like your own, and I will be as strong. I know I'm weak, but I'm not willfully wicked. And when I ask you to be silent, it is because I want to save him from the pain of doubt, and try to teach myself to love him as I should. I must have time, but I can bear much and endeavor more persistently than you believe. Whew! Let's see how much more we got to go. Not a whole lot, but more than I want to read right now. So I'm going to stop there. Yeah. 26 minutes or so. I love you all very much and hope to see you in a little while live at 5. Tea with me, GrannyDee. I'll try not to have so much show and tell or do trivia nobody wants to do, and we'll just chat, I reckon. I better come with something to talk about. Love y'all. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Bye-bye.